come to the table prepared, so that none of you have all the list that.
This cartoon summarizes so well. I wish you are there.
You know, these guys can win if these guys can draw up their alternative or their, you know, and they go with their paper and say this is what we want to discuss. And the government refuses. Tomorrow they can come and say this is what we put on the table. But if the intention is to pull down government and tell them, you know, you guys, you're failed, then I mean, this thing will not go anywhere.
Bill, I'm saying you can even do it pro bono.
So since we have
thank you for volunteering him.
and since we have Bill Okero, who is the engine of the economic affairs on the Azimio side, you're the one who should be steamrolling this, because all this is predicated now on the economy. In fact, you should be coming with all this document and just tabling it as, I mean, you table here and tell us these are what you've enumerated from the economic affairs of Azimio.
If you can answer that question, if you can answer this question, I hope the talks are about me in that cartoon. We are home and dry. No, I think to me this is.
But it's a good point.
The talk is about the Mwananchi.
Yes,
and it is.
And you guys can easily have the moral high ground, because it's easy. Government's always weak anyway. Government does silly things all over the world. So if you have the opportunity as an opposition, you can always, you know, from the point of view of the public, come up with very rosy proposals on what you expect the government to do on the economy, and then go with it and say this was our proposal.
And you see they are communicating.
I got 5 out of 10.
To close this, I just want to take you back to the anti-corruption conference we had at Bomas and what happened there. We had the public's view on what needs to be done. And we had the then president, the Speaker of the National Assembly, and a whole host of the enforcement agency leaders sitting on a stage. And they were read in public what Kenyans expected. And they were humble enough at that time to say, we will take this on board and do it. And that is when they went to Naivasha, if you remember. And then I think it was the judiciary, the DPP's office and whatever, they all got together to say, why are these things not happening? Why are people being prosecuted and all the rest of it? And they started talking about the quality of the documents that are brought for prosecution in the courts and so forth and so on. So something actually happened. But you need to come down to that level whereby you can accept that wananchi wamesema hivi.
Exactly.
And get a process by which that thing can be brought together in a way that everybody accepts this is the true wananchi. Because at the moment, the people sitting in parliament say they're the people's representative. Therefore, nobody else can come and tell anybody that they're the people's representative. So the people can't come in any other way apart from through these people. I think that is quite myopic.
Thank you. So we have a very interesting editorial cartoon as well inside the People Daily there, and it's all about the Finance Act as it is right now, and we can see the pliers is pulling away one of the tooth there. So there are 2 remaining. It's going to be a mapengo there. This is what Mwananchi is saying. Please, it's not going to work. This is a bad idea. Stop it. They've made, of course, their voices regarding this. No, just a moment. I want
It's so painful.
It's so painful. You the pliers. No anesthesia. Yeah. So there's no pacifying on it. Yeah. But there's no pacifying, no anesthesia. It's painful as it is, as you can see. But the reason actually I'm bringing this is because tomorrow there is a big, of course, decision and determination on this particular Finance Act. And I wanted just to ask, because they're saying that state will backdate new taxes should the court lift freeze on this particular order. We've always been on this table and we've said that you cannot apply the law retrospectively.
No, you can't.
So why will the state want to actually go back now to July 1st to try and reinstate this freeze order, if at all it is going to hold?
Kera is not in the judiciary. The judiciary will decide that. The premise is you cannot take a law backwards. I think Kera can even take it to 2022, 2020.
Is that the case really? You know, the law, the effective date of the law was actually, not all of it, but the majority of the parts of the articles in the Finance Act kick in July 1. There are a couple of provisions that are for January and so on. Now, to the best of my knowledge, the law has been enacted and challenged. So if the court does not strike down the law, it stands. And it stands from July 1.
From July,
yeah. So that's what.
If the court
so if the president assented to, automatically it's been enacted.
Yes.
Okay.
And if the court says there's nothing wrong, proceed. Then
so they're going to back.
Oh,
so you just start from the time it was. All you're saying it is okay. Go back and start
from January.
You see, it is already started.
Court, really.
Started, yeah.
Because the effective date is July 1, except for a few provisions. I think like the housing levy. Where they, even in Parliament, they argued that because they are not quite ready, and of course our argument is, if you are not ready, why are you bringing it? January. So if the court don't strike it down, it starts July 1.
And again, the issues, the court can only rule on issues before it. If the effective date of commencement of a particular of the act or of particular sections of the act is not before the court cannot give a ruling on that. The court will only look at the issues before it. And it's quite likely that they'll probably look at those some specific issues, but not, the whole, like for example, if there's no issue before it regarding the VAT on fuel being double, and the court allows that one to go, then it will start effectively from 1st July. That's quite likely.
Okay. So what I'm not sure. Are there certain provisions the court can say this ones can go, but these ones?
That's what we're waiting for.
Like the whole thing was like it's not good, but I think there are certain goods in it. There are certain things I can't pinpoint now. But what I know, something like the housing levy.
The court will respond only to the specific.
Yeah, the housing levy.
Yeah.
From the stakeholders, it was non-starter.
All right. So the issue of EPRA and the fuel, that people also have moved to court to challenge it. That this was a pure disregard to what the court had ordered, and you've just effected we are actually using 16% as well. How then will you challenge that?
Because that one is justified. That one is because for the moment, right now, the act is not enforced because the court has injected it.
Yeah. So this is an illegality as it is right now?
As it is, yes.
So,
if you are basing it on that, that's now another ruling,
That's a separate.
Because the people have gone to court, the EPRA should not have done that, and that ruling will be determined.
That is a question of.
And we should be reimbursed with our receipts.
But we are hoping, let me tell you.
You can't reimburse. What you do is you're going to deal
paying for illegality.
The people who implemented it.
Okay.
We are hoping that the courts will have judicial notice of the plight of Kenyans and probably address some of the issues in a very simple way. For example, some of the issues Omtata raised can actually get the whole act referred back to Parliament. Particularly where the one regarding, the Senate should have been
the complementarity, the concurrence.
Unconstitutionality or issues and so forth. If they do that, then of course the whole effectiveness of the date of commencement will then has to be done again. So I think
that issue of concurrence as well. Precedent has been set there before. This is not the first time we're passing the finance bill. We've had previous finance bills before, and the Senate has been there. So how come it escaped the notice of Senate all through until now?
No, it didn't. It's just that finance bill is an omnibus.
It's an omnibus,
bill.
but it still touches
so what they did was there are several other amendments on other acts, such as the Employment Act, the NHIF Act, others which have nothing to do with the money. Those housing. So those things have all been included. That's the issue. That because of that, then they should have gone to the Senate. So I think we're hoping that judiciary will, and they have in the past, nullified many dozens of bills that have been passed by the National Assembly.
So the illegality as well of
The constitutionality is what they look at.
They didn't really follow the standing
And
order.
if you go back, there was a time it was almost like a dozen acts that were found.
Over 100 acts, which
They
had
were-
been.
they were tucked in,
Even now the legality of those things is still. Yes.
Which was struck out because they had not followed.
Have not been done legally.
And so they started now one after the other going through the process.
to resolve them.
So if the court rules tomorrow, this thing is unconstitutional. That's it.
That's it.
The whole act then cannot be enforced from 1st of July because that is unconstitutional, the whole thing. So it has to go back again.
But that's a sad thing. I don't know where it's going back to. And I like what you narrated earlier on, before 2012, the Constitution, that you have really a well-structured opposition and is given opportunity in Parliament to debate this. Right now, we don't have an opposition. We don't have an opposition in the National Assembly.
Been bought.
Yeah, there's none.
That's why they have gone to streets.
And perhaps this is now the avenue, the rito of coming very strongly. Even if you're not given the opportunity to present on the floor, how do we get a very strong budget, which now identifies with the 190?
But Professor, to answer you very, very quickly, if you notice what we've been talking about, for instance, about Article 1, you see, the citizen, sovereign power belongs to the citizen. They donate it to their elected representatives. If the elected representatives go rogue, that's this question about exercising power directly.
Right.
And you also have to remember that the doers, who is the doer? So we can agree on an economic plan here, but who is the doer? The doer happens to be government. So government's commitment into what is going on, frankly, has to be there. And I think we've asked on this very panel many times, where are the key economic managers? Are they still in this country? I mean, where is the finance minister or cabinet secretary for treasury? When is the last time you had him?
I thought we answered that when
I
talked about the board.
When is the last time you had him commenting on matters of this economy? Where is the central bank governor? Are they really in this republic? And these are the key.
No, power has gone to State House nowadays. You know that everything is done from there. But the point he raised, the opposition actually. Let me be frank. They also have failed. Frankly. Forget about National Assembly. Let's say that institution is dead. They can still play their role out in other forums. For example, I remember in the first 2 years of our 2 or 3 when we were in the opposition, I used to present my alternative budget in hotels together with the Ministry of Economic Affairs. We were mobilizing all these organizations to develop an alternative budget. And then we were presenting it. I remember we were presenting in hotels. All our teams, the chairman, all the teams will come. If Parliament is not available, nothing stops you as the leader
from
of
doing it in the
economic
streets.
Advisor. You are the David India of
and Professor, we're talking about the committee.
You can do your presentation.
And it can even go beyond
What Bilo is saying, you need to get your act together and get a bit organized.
Fair enough. I'm glad that you've given the opportunity. In 2 minutes, our budget reduces expenditure by 500.
You are now presenting it.
I'm now presenting it. Haven't you told me to present it? It reduces expenditure. There is no time like the present to get on with it. It reduces expenditure by just a little. Seize the moment. By just a little over 500 billion. How do we do it? We do it by eliminating duplication. Okay, that all the functions that are being done by counties, we are removing them from the ministries in Nairobi that are trying to do them. I already gave you the example of health. I can go on in all the others, but I only have less now than a minute.
Because I'm worried you'll take a whole session. With your briefcase.
Removing
Duplication.
Give the bar break. I don't know what.
Can I present it or not?
I'm thinking maybe the next session.
Yeah,
next session we'll discuss now when you come now with the proper planning. Yes, because now we cannot actually challenge what you're telling us without the documents. We need also to peruse, go through it so that we can actually make comparisons as well. But okay, you've actually talked about the issue of the courts now not really reverting or backdating. That is settled. I wanted to raise the issue that is there as well. That
just one more. I mean, it's just burning.
Okay.
Because Patrick and all these good gentlemen were there. Look, the debt problem, the nature of the debt problem is very similar to what it was 20 years ago. Okay? And we in our budget, what we proposed to do is the same thing we did that time, which is this. You need to dial down interest rates. Because without doing that, the debt only snowballs.
Yeah.
Okay? We need to reprofile the maturity of the debt so that the short-term debt is replaced with longer-term debt, and we need to dial down the cost of that debt. As you will notice, which again, it's really unfortunate, and where are the key economic managers? If a government is now borrowing at 16-17%, which means the debt problem will only get worse. Because government is borrowing at 17% to replace older debt that was perhaps at 10%, and the thing just spirals. I stop there.
All right.
Ramping up short-term
Okay,
debt.
we need to follow up what is really happening with the shilling as it is right now, because the central bank says it has held off on intervening in the foreign exchange rate market to prop up the Kenyan shilling, preferring to let it find its level despite the local unit losing 15% of its value against the US dollar this year so far. And the Apex Bank says it has largely stepped back on intervention, suggesting the depreciation in the local unit is not representative of the excess volatility. Now, CBK uses a combination of monetary policy and open market operations as some of the intervention's measures to steady the shilling, in addition to the sale of dollars from its reserves to the open market to smoothen the supply of hard currency in the market. And this is what we want just to put on the table as well. As it stands, it continues to fall precipitously. We're talking about 141.26 as it was last week. I saw it today is 142.17. That is a central bank projection, right? So I wanted you to, I can see you nodding. This is not the reality on the ground. What you're buying it from, yeah? But also the sources from central bank.
Yeah, you see the dual Forex policy is still there. We are buying at 144 this week. Yesterday, we were buying at 144. In fact, 144 point something. There are banks that are even higher. Other banks 143.50. So the reality, let me tell you, of this Forex. Of course, the previous, I've argued here many times, the previous governor screwed up the Forex policy in this country. But I think now where we are with the level of external debts and redemptions that need to be done and all that, and the reduced exports and the high cost of imports, I think the shilling and of course the IMF again, which has many has been arguing that the Kenyan shilling is overvalued, and they wanted to really go down to that 150 or whatever. Then I don't see a central bank having the appetite to try and intervene. Even if they wanted to, I don't think they will be willing to, because of the thinking in the IMF, particularly that the shilling is overvalued. But the situation is, the result of this is that we are finding our cost of production very high. It's inimical to all the efforts to try and reduce the cost of living, because as a third world country, majority of our production still relies on raw materials, and other inputs that come in from outside, everything from agriculture to manufacturing, to education, to everything. I think import is a major thing, including things like fuel. So I think the dollar impact should be taken as the key item in any discussion in the cost of living. That, for me, is critical. Any attempt to try and address the economy, without addressing the issue of the Forex, would be a futile attempt.
All right, Patrick Obath.
No, I share Billo's concerns, because where is that dollar going to come from? That's the bottom line, right? Whatever is coming in, right? Patrick Obath and co are saying, don't touch my dollars, keep them for me. Don't do anything with it. So there's no dollars available in the system. Neither, and the central bank cannot release dollars to be able to satisfy what is going on. There'll be a run on those dollars. So what is happening is we are slowly creeping to that crunch point, whereby the economy could grind to a halt, right? The only time that anything has happened, the World Bank has actually come in to rescue the country and put dollars in under whatever pretext.
That's how we've been surviving.
And that's they've always come on a pretext of supporting this, supporting that, supporting something else, but that is dollars into the economy, and then it has continued that way. And these conversations are taking place at the moment. I mean, how many times have you seen the World Bank on the front page of the newspaper?
Yes,
they're here, right? So I think we're in a situation in this country whereby we really have to relook at how we finance our internals, and then release enough money to be able to buy whatever what we need to service the loans. Because if we can't service those loans, then they're all dollar-denominated loans. This country's rating is then going to down. Forex, things are going to flee from the country. Whatever. You're seeing little bits of that. Even with Sulu saying that, have you seen the number of investors coming to Tanzania? All these are indicators that we've got a very serious situation, that the two people who need to talk about it and work on it are very silent.
Treasury and Central
Bank. But two people. And now it's going to be worse. If you look at yesterday, the Fed raised to 5.5 or something they have done for so many years. And the key question, where is the dollar coming from? That's a key question we need to ask ourselves as a country. And you can stand there, tell us we shall do it next week. And a friend of mine told me, hope. We live by hope. But with equal measure, hope is not a strategy and will never be. What is a strategy to bring the dollar, to manage the dollar? And it goes back into how are we dealing with our productivity? Are we still importing? Because for import, you need those dollars. So the question is we need to ask ourselves where it's coming from. And fundamentally, come hard on imports. Really hard for imports. There are some imports which are absolutely unnecessary. And you go to it's now almost 145, not what you see here. I just changed some 2 weeks ago to some intern. I was given at 145. So
there's a widely circulating video on social media of the Ghanaian vice president saying, you can't quite run the economy on propaganda. I mean, you can, however good at it you are, ultimately, the exchange rate will reveal whether you are the fundamentals. And what is happening is exactly like that. Our own, because you've challenged me here, where are our own alternatives as opposition? One of our alternatives is to immediately operationalize the East African Monetary Union. And the East African Monetary Union protocol was signed.
Not the way we are doing the deals with the EU.
But hear me, more than 10 years ago when this protocol was signed, it's required that the central banks try and create convergence of policy like monetary policy, which has happened. It should be possible to operationalize it inside just 2-3 months. And that will save the East African community approximately $11 to $12 billion, which we require to pay ourselves as we trade within the region. But you're quite right, all of you, that the cost of living, to manage the cost of living, you have to manage the exchange rate very, very critically because of the import, the proportion of import that is inside our production, particularly petroleum products, but of course other spaces in production. So you have to manage it
Let me help
properly.
You know, you said a very good point. Our largest trading partner is Uganda, and Tanzania nowadays follows very closely. If you look at the number of times the government went to Tanzania or Uganda to discuss business, to discuss economic relationship and so forth, I think there was one trip the president made when he came to power. All our trips from Russia to everywhere else in the world you have gone 100 trips all over the world, but you can go to your largest trading partners to discuss these issues. Can we transact in our currency? Can we, deal with each other this way, that way? This is where the activity is required. There is no one who is discussing at government level really how to address these fundamental issues. People in government who are assigned these responsibilities are looking for their own investments, their own vested interests, how to put up their factories, how to make their own money. But this is what they need to do. Otherwise, this shilling, let me tell you, with the petroleum scandal thing coming up soon, with the debts to be paid, this shilling is headed south. And the situation will get worse.
So the other thing that we've all been crowing about is the fact that the diaspora inputs into the country
has dipped a bit.
No, it's going down.
It's going down.
It's dropped by about, I think, 13-14% since January. 16% since January. And it's going to continue. Because the same thing, the cost of living in those countries and the productivity is also
affecting here.
Is also down. So everything that was propping the dollar in this country is going the wrong way.
So we can see also the effect of a shilling or the dollar on the shilling, that now the debt repayment, we have almost 686 billion shillings, and this is ticking up as it is.
Well, absolutely. I mean,
so this is a nightmare.
There's a very good article in the editorial in the Standard about IMF and on all this. Very interesting to read it through. And I've always asked in this forum, give me one example where those programs have worked.
Well, in my response, Professor has always been.
Yes.
My response has always been, and I was not in IMF, I was IFC. IFC is private sector. IFC is private sector.
But still Bretton Woods.
But Bretton Woods. A fact that I've never hidden, Patrick. I've always owned up.
Yes.
9 years in the IFC, financing African companies. My response has always been this. IMF is an ICU attendant or an ICU doctor. I mean, you go to IMF because your economy is in shambles, as it is. So whenever you find as a country, if you find yourself having to look for an IMF program, that is the signal, if you needed a signal, that there is something fundamentally wrong with your economy. And IMF is set up like that. Yeah? When your economy is doing well, you don't go to IMF, you have no need for IMF. When Patrick and Kibaki and the other people who were there at that time balanced the budget, he was there. When they balanced the budget in 2004, okay? In 2003, 2005, they had no need for us, as a matter of fact, because you are living within your means. In 2004, you had a budget surplus of 1 billion. Which meant you removed government, for example, from borrowing in the domestic market. That is why the banks were out on the street trying to persuade Kenyans, please come and borrow. The treasury bill rate was 1% because of that state.
But we didn't have externalities as well as we.
Oh, we did.
Well, I think God was very kind to these people.
Yeah.
Because this IMF thing, they're the ones who signed on to it.
Which people now?
The former administration.
Yes.
I mean, I was not in the former administration.
The former administration.
Thank you.
But the question was,
they're the ones who signed on to this IMF.
How do you get? I hear you.
Let's Bill just finish.
I just asked him a question. How do you get somebody from ICU
to HDU to general ward and then out of the hospital?
Can we let Bill finish?
Not through taxation.
All right.
Exactly.
So,
and this is where
okay, can Bill finish, then we take a short break?
There's no disputing the fact that the economy was in bad shape. The former president alluded to it during the campaigns. The situation is bad, and we were on IMF drip even before they handed over the power to the current administration. But I think the unfortunate thing is that the current administration is more or less replicating the same thing in terms of their policies, or even worse, what the other administration has done. For example, we expected them, having found themselves in a hole, to stop digging. They are digging harder than the former administration because you are borrowing. This borrowing now that's going on today is going to make tomorrow very bad. I'm telling you. I think these guys need to step back and look at the economy and get a wider discussion. We have raised it many times, Patrick and others, a broader discussion on the economy. Get businesses, industrialists, economists. They can't let people as a nation meet to discuss really how to get out of this situation.
Right. Interesting. They're still using the shovel, or maybe they're using the excavator right now.
To dig faster.
To dig faster, as it is. Yeah. And of course, as we're winding up, there is this interesting editorial cartoon. And I remember I saw this, the same cartoon many years back. If Derek may just pick it up as we're winding up. It's 8 o'clock on the nose. We take a short break. And this is of the central bank, CBK. Exactly. Gado just drew this, I think, some years back, and was it in 2014 or 2017 when we had the free falling of a shilling. But then we had the current CS as the central bank governor. And we had the shilling really going down, the rocks, dong, 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 dong. Hey, stop, they say. Where do you think you're going? Do you know that I can order your arrest? I order you to come back here. This is what we got to do a while back. And this is just the free falling of a shilling. The shilling is going down and down and down, adversely affecting anyone. We take a